I say namaskar to everybody who is in this Zoom conference. Namaskar to all, Pragya Prawaha Hyderabad, all the members, everybody who is present here. And Girdharji, I was just thinking, because we all are in lockdown in same situation, 130 crore people and locked inside their houses. So as usual, we always start thinking on our favorite topics. My favorite topic being, and I gave considerable amount of time and energy on this particular topic, as to during the COVID crisis, what was the nature and response of the communists, the capitalists, the Islamic world, and also the Sajjan Shakti and the Durjan Shakti in Bharat itself. Because when you see that during times of stress, the nature and character of a person, a society, and ideology of a country can be seen by one and all. So if I start with the communist world, how they responded to the COVID crisis, take an example of China. In China, when on 30th of December 2020, Li Wenliang, an ophthalmologist, that's the eye doctor, he was working in Wuhan Central Hospital in China. He saw a number of patients were there, and all those patients had gone to the Wuhan meat market. They all had consumed animal food, and they all had the same symptoms. They had the respiratory problems, which was kind of SARS epidemic, which he had witnessed in 2003. SARS was severe acute respiratory syndrome, which killed thousands of people throughout the world. It was an epidemic. So on social media chatting platform of China, that is WeChat, he shared this information. He told his friends to wear protective gear. He told his friends, who are all doctors, that to take care of your loved ones, because this strange kind of a disease is there, which he had seen in Wuhan Central Hospital. Now, within minutes, this particular chat, it went viral. It went viral all over Chinese social media. And then, of course, he knew that it was out of his hand, and any day he will see police coming at his doorstep. And that was there. Police came at his doorstep. They summoned him. They said, Communist Party of China is very, very angry with you, that you are spreading false rumors. You are disturbing public order. You have to give a statement and an apology that you will not give such wrong, false statements in future. And this is from them. He said, I was one of those 8 people who were summoned, and the police was not very good with them. They threatened them, they tortured them, all 8 of them. And thereafter he gave his apology letter. 3 days later, he joined his Wuhan Central Hospital again. And once he joined back, he started as usual treating the patients. And there was one particular lady, a woman, he was treating for glaucoma. And when he was treating that lady was asymptomatic. She did not show any signs of COVID disease. But this lady infected her own family and then transmitted the infection to Li. Li became sick. Li had headache, he had cough, he had sneezing, he had fever. He had to be admitted to the hospital. He was put in ICU, and on 6th of February, Li died of coronavirus. 3 times he tested, in fact 2 times he tested negative, and thereafter 3rd time also negative, 4th time he tested positive. He had told in December 30th, 2019 itself that there is this strange disease. Had the Chinese Communist Party taken care at that time, had they listened to these known voices, had they listened to these experts who are not saying what Chinese government wanted, these were so-called dissenting voices. Had the Chinese government listened to them, acted upon them, maybe Li could have been saved. Maybe thousands of other lives in China could have been saved. But this was a typical communist reaction to any outbreak, any dissent, any discomforting voice which is tortured, crushed, and killed. We see it everywhere. China did not pass on this information to WHO also in time. They informed WHO very late. In fact, lakhs of Chinese travelers, they were traveling all over the world in January, in February, because nobody knew about the extent of this pandemic in China. In fact, the epidemic at that time in China. Now, China is on the recovery stage. China has opened up its markets also to a great extent. It has opened its tourism sector, its airlines also to a great extent, but it is not sharing information with the world as to how to recover from this disease. It is trying to take advantage of this tragic situation in the world. Norway, Spain, India says you are supplying faulty personal protective equipment to us, PPE kits to us. You are supplying faulty masks to us. You are supplying testing kits which are of very, very poor quality. You are taking advantage of the situation. China and the communism as an ideology have lost their credibility in the world today, both socially, both economically. And I was going through a news today itself, which stated that China has this problem and maybe there can be a Tiananmen Square kind of uprising in China against the Communist Party. Now, this was the communist response, typical selfish response, that we are the repository of ultimate truth and nobody can give any truth except with our permission. For the people of China, Li is a hero. They literally worship him as a hero, and they say for safer world, we need millions and millions of Lis. We need more voices than one voice of Communist Party. This was the communist response, as usual. Now, we all must be knowing that Italy also has a left-wing coalition government which is pro-China. And Italy has two problems, in fact, three problems. First problem is it has one of the oldest populations of the world. More than 60% of its people are above 40 years. Secondly, it is too much in love with China. Its society, its economy, its government, its politics, everything is dominated by China. And third is that they could not, neither the administrators nor the governors, not realize the gravity of the epidemic. So, by 1st of February, when entire world was saying social distancing, when they were having restraint on the travels from China, on 1st of February, Dario Nardello, the mayor of Florence, Italy, he initiated a campaign on Twitter, Hug a Chinese. He asked all the pedestrians walking on the streets, walking on the roads, if you see a Chinese, give him a tight hug. He is yours. This governor was hailed as a person who is championing the cause of anti-racism against Chinese. But was it logical? When entire world was saying social distance, he was advocating hugging? Thereafter, Ms. Zimpa, the Health Ministry Under Secretary, see the ignorance. She said the coronavirus in China like a science fiction movie that has nothing to do with Italy or its people. They could not realize that lakhs of Chinese are traveling to and fro from Italy even after December 2019. In fact, there are so many Chinese students in Italian university and colleges that when they went back to their native villages in China and they came back to Italy in January, February, they were not even quarantined. They were not even screened, not even tested. Hence, Italy became aware of this pandemic when it had pile and heaps of dead bodies which were there in the churches, in the streets. This was Italy, the communist country, if I can say so, because it was totally under the influence of China. Now, if we come to the capitalist response, people expect that, as has been taught to us, that in the US, People have right to live with dignity. They have a dignified life. They have all the basic essentials. They live life of luxury. If they don't have money, state provides them money, healthcare, etc., etc. But here, the world saw total confusion in the capitalist world. Capitalist world could not prioritize whether lives are more important or whether economy is more important. When the administration in the Trump government, in US government, when the intelligence officials, when everybody, the advisors, they were advising for a total lockdown, Trump believed that it will be harmful for the economy and the revenue generation. At that time, when the administration was saying, see, this infection can go on for long and it can be very, very dangerous. Trump said, no, the warmth is coming, summers are coming. So maybe it gets away like a miracle. So there was confusion at the top. This confusion was there with the church also. You must have seen that statement of Pastor Tony Spell, who told a local TV that, this virus is politically motivated. We can't leave our religious practices. We are going to assemble in our religious gatherings, come what may. And people were also confused because there were confusing messages which were going down. People came to the streets. They came in their cars. They started honking on the streets with banners, hundreds and thousands of them in more than 10 states, saying, where is our freedom? We want our freedom. We want to go back to work. Who will pay for our mortgage? We want to go for a hairstylist, for spa, for saloon. We want our independence. We cannot live without our independence. And there were counter rallies of people, which were few in number, which were saying that we want complete lockdown. So confusion at the level of the government, confusion at the level of the religious organizations, confusion at the level of the people. Everybody thought about their own. Where were those organizations which have millions and millions of dollars and they always vow to work for the poor and the needy? Individualism was the dominant factor in the capitalist world. And when there was ultimately when Trump administration saw that more than 75,000 deaths, lakhs and lakhs of people infected, then the war with WHO started. WHO was called as the Wuhan Health Organization. WHO was called China-centric. WHO was accused of giving the information to the world very late. And because there was no alert, so people from China and affected countries kept on traveling to the other countries and spreading the infection. Now, if we come to Islamic world. See, Islamic world, if we talk about, Islamic world has two very, very important factors which determine their action and their fight against COVID. First is religion. Religion is the dominant factor, as we all know, in the Islamic world. So any adoption of technology was slow. They were slow in adopting technology. They were slow in changing practices. They were slow in understanding that we don't have to gather in masjids in large numbers or go for pilgrimage. They continued to gather and the epidemic continued to spread. Then the second problem was that many of the Islamic countries have this refugee problem. Many of them have been at war. So their society, their economy, their medical infrastructure, all is in devastated form. Talk about Syria, talk about Yemen or Libya. They are almost free. They are almost failed states. And refugee camps, they're overcrowded. Little sanitation, little medical facilities. How can you have social distancing there? The epidemic is going to spread. And if I can also say so, that Islamic State said, we have less food, less water, less medicines, and these will first be given only to our citizens, that is Muslims. Minorities, you are second. Once we are done with our citizens, then we'll take care of minorities. So minorities were left high and dry, abandoned by these states. And if the fourth point I can add here, the fourth point was religion and religious leaders dominated the governments. Nobody wanted to antagonize the religious leaders, the mullahs. If I can take the example of our neighbor Pakistan, 11th and 12th of March, there was a Tablighi Jamaat religious gathering held in Pakistan. About 2.5 lakh people attended that gathering. There were people from more than 80 countries, from Palestine to Kyrgyzstan. And after attending this 2-day gathering, they all went to their respective countries. Now the world is concerned that these people may play havoc with their fight against Corona because they have gone back to 80 plus countries. Now, if you see, Imran Khan, the Prime Minister and his administration did not declare a lockdown. They were afraid of these religious leaders. They had to retain their government. A minister of the Imran Khan government tweeted that please pray from your houses, do not gather in masjids. And then in the same tweet he said, Allah forgive me for what I have written. Such was the confusion. But there was one clarity, that lives may be lost, the epidemic may spread, but we need to retain our power and we need to be there. We cannot antagonize the mullahs. Now, if I come to Bharat's response, India's response. In fact, the entire world is praising India's response. And it was, if I can say, it was an informed, decisive, and uniform response. National Disaster Management Act was implemented early, and central government, state governments, union territory, the entire administration, bureaucracy, the political structure, they acted as one unit. In January itself, the screening of foreign travelers began. And if needed, they were asked to self-quarantine themselves. MHA issued advisories against travel to countries which are badly hit by coronavirus, like China, like Italy, like Spain, like Japan. By 22nd of March, Modi government asked everybody to come forward for Janta curfew. This is voluntary curfew to prepare the people for the days to come. They did not impose this curfew. They prepared the people. And from 24th of March onwards, there was 21 days lockdown, which was extended and again now extended to 17th of May. Complete lockdown with only essentials, bare essentials, and in the orange and the green zone, some activities allowed. 130 crore people in complete lockdown. And mind you, no protests on the road. Nobody said that we want to go to saloon, we have mortgages, we want to go for employment. What about our salary? No. People acted as one unit, because they put their country above their own lives, above their own comforts. They're used to it. Modi appealed to the spiritual consciousness of this country. He said, through Sankalp and Sanyam, we will defeat Corona. Through resolve and discipline, we will fight Corona. Bang the thalis, blow shanks at 5 p.m., he said. 9 p.m. for 9 minutes, light a candle. What was he doing? He was appealing to the spiritual and collective consciousness of 130 crore Indians, telling them, don't be depressed, don't be stressed. You are not alone in your houses, but you are there, one of those 130 crore people who have resolved through discipline to fight against Corona. This, we all say, is Sangachadvam, Samvadadvam, Samvomana, Sijanatam. Let's walk together. Let's speak together. Let's think together. May our purpose be the same. May we all be one mind. So we offer this common prayer. 130 crore people were thinking together. They were speaking together. They were acting together. And resolve was one. Coronavirus has to be defeated. India and world has to win. Then after the Modi administration gave us small anuvratas, small vows, small pledges. They said, this is your Lakshman Rekha at the doorstep. Do not go out. So when people even thought of going out, they thought, this is my Lakshman Rekha. They combined it with the spiritual strength of the nation. Then he said, take extra care of elders. They have no immunity. Follow Ayush Ministry guidelines, how to improve your immunity, etc. Download the Arogya app. Help feed the poor. Feeding the poor is not only government's responsibility, it's your and mine responsibility. Do not terminate employees. Respect corona warriors, the doctors, the nurses, the sweepers, and the policemen. Then, now critics said, why Ramayana and Mahabharata? How can they help us in fighting corona? Tell these critics, talk to our parents, talk to our in-laws, talk to our aged, talk to our young, talk to our middle-aged people. They all are watching Ramayana and Mahabharata. Why are they watching it? Because it distresses you. It shows you how to behave during challenging times. It tells you about Gita. That is the biggest motivational seminar given by Lord Krishna on this earth. When Arjuna was in a stressful situation, he was in a dilemma whether to fight or not, what to do. Lord Krishna brought him out of this stress and strain and tension, telling him the art of living. Ramayana Mahabharata is all about triumph of good over the evil, which is so much needed. It is about peace, it is about ahimsa, it is about fighting the bad and the evil. And no doubt, if you see the figures, that the most popular serial of the world, that is Game of Thrones, it was overtaken by Ramayana's viewership. It was more than 77 million in a day. Now, this government's response was decisive. They connected in our own language. They gave us small tasks to perform. They took care of our mental health, which is so much needed. The other countries are talking about the physical restraint and the economy. Nobody is addressing the issue of mental health, which is so very important. Now, if I can go further than this, how did the society react to corona? How did you and I react to the corona pandemic? Society did not wait for the government to perform. Society said, all the elderly, all the birds, all the animals, all the cows in Gaushalas, all the poor, all the needed, all the diseased, they are our responsibility. You had organizations like Sangh, RSS, Seva Bharti, and all its allied organizations who are providing food to lakhs and lakhs of people every day. And they're not even taking a rupee from the government. The society is coming together. The money is being poured into that society's vessel. And from that vessel, like Annapurna, these organizations are serving the poor and the needy. And those who are in need of food, shelter, water, medicines. I remember in Delhi, there was this issue of migration workers. Thousands of migration workers started going towards their house. So how to go to their villages in Bihar from Delhi? So they went towards Anandpur bus stop in Trans Yamuna, that is East Delhi. Thousands gathered there. RSS people took it upon themselves with the help of administration. In fact, they were helping the administration. They went there wearing masks, having sanitizers. They ensured social distances. They asked the people to come in queues. And that crowd, the unruly crowd, a queue was formed, social distancing was there, food was being given by our own Karyakartas there. This is when society says that we have Bharatiya values. And our values say, sacrifice yourself for the family, sacrifice the family for the society, sacrifice the family for the country, and everything for humanity. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now, here, why were we thinking about Gaushalas? Why were we thinking about animals and birds and the old aged? We have the examples of other countries where people were looting supermarkets. There were riots for food. And people were standing outside in just waiting for the doors to be given by the government. But here in Bharat, I think our spiritual strength helped us in fighting with this COVID crisis. Our spiritual sense says that Isha Vasyam Idam Sarva, God is everywhere, Kan Kan mein Bhagwan. It says Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramaya. It does not say happiness only of Hindus. It says Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, happiness of Hindus, happiness of Muslims. In fact, they don't talk about Hindus. Happiness of human beings, happiness of birds, happiness of animals, happiness of creatures, anything and everything in this universe. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Everything should be happy, everything should prosper. Our Bharatiya culture tells us that Aham Brahmasmi, I am divine, I have divinity. Tatvam Asi, you are also the same. Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande, what is in this body is in this universe. And that's why we say Namaste. That is the divine in me, knows the divine in you. There is no difference between you and me. China, when it could help the world after recovery, did not help. It took economic advantage of it. But when India was told to supply hydroxychloroquine, to supply paracetamol, it said, don't worry, it's there for you. We are there for you. This is the individual view. This is the world view. This is the Bharatiya view. We did not try to extract money out of the world when the world is facing the crisis. We try to help our people because we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There is the divine in me. It's also there in divine in you. There is no difference between you and me. You and me are the same. I accept you. I don't tolerate you. I accept you also to be true. Such Bharatiya culture helped us in these times of crisis and it's helping us. Now if you see, the world over, they are accepting the Bharatiya culture. They are digging and mining what was the strength which helped 1 crore Indians without protest to stay at home and not to cross the Lakshman Rekha. Namaste has been taken as the new greeting throughout the world instead of hugging, instead of kissing, instead of handshake. People are doing yoga, pranayam, dhyan for relaxation and calmness of mind. You see, there's so many countries, if I can just name, Japan with more than 90% and USA with more than 40% people, they are not burying their dead. They are cremating them because they say it's more eco-friendly. It is easy. It's good. So over burial, they are choosing cremation. In fact, in Muslim countries like Iraq and another country, Italy, people are refusing. They're telling, oh, you don't bury your corona positive person in my neighborhood. The soil may infect me also with corona. What's the alternative? World is taking cremation of the dead to be an alternative. We've seen Ayurveda spas throughout USA and Europe, which de-stresses them, gives them vitality. And people are talking about what we talk as karma. They're talking about the karma theory. They are saying these are the bad karmas of exploiting the nature. This is the greed and selfishness of the individuals. Man being the center of all activity, not having a harmonious balance with ecology, that we are facing the COVID crisis. So bad karma gives its consequences also. And world is realizing that we all are one. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One Li. One voice of Li in China in December 2019. If that was heard by the world, if that was given attention to by the world, the person in Italy or USA or Spain or my own country, Bharat, would not have died. So we are one village. It's Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are one family. Take care of everybody. Don't exploit. We all are divine. Now this Samudra Manthan, which is going on in the world between the evil and the good forces for Amrit, for immortality, this Samudra Manthan is also going on in India. See, India, we have seen the Sajjan Shakti, we have seen the Devas who have come out, who have no money. But they are taking the money from society and giving the money to society. they are helping others, because all are one. But now let me talk about the Durjan Shakti, if I can say the Asuras of Bharat, and we've seen them. I know somebody told me this story that when in Ramayana, Ramji was going to kill Ravan. Ravan Yudh was going on. At that time, Ravan built a Maya. And in that Maya, he brought in a number of more Ravanas. He created an illusion that this is also Ravana, this is also Ravana. So what I'm feeling is, nowadays this jihadi Naxal gang, the leftist jihadi gang, it is building Maya of Islamophobia. If you have seen the newspapers of last 1 week, from India to Kuwait to UAE, all through, they're trying to have a global narrative that in India, people hate Muslims. People dislike Muslims. There is an irrational fear against Muslims, and that is Islamophobia. In India's fight against this coronavirus, they are trying to build these mayas so that India distracts, the world distracts, the society distracts. And in fact, they are relying on 3 things. Number 1, the fake stories, which get busted on social media. Secondly, they are relying on the Pak-structured cyber army aided by China. Number 3, they are relying on the established credible faces like Arundhati Roy's, who give interviews to Guardians and New York Times, and they get published and circulated. In Islamophobia, that is hatred towards Islam in India, they're talking about 5 things. These leftist jihadi groups. Number 1, they're talking about CAA. They're saying CAA is anti-Muslim. Secondly, they're talking about Delhi riots. They're saying Delhi riots was a pogrom against the Muslims by the Hindus. Number 3, they're saying students are being arrested under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Number 4, they are saying Tablighi Jamaat is being targeted because of Corona. They are the victims, they are the heroes, they are not the spreaders. And fifthly, they are saying that there is boycott of Muslim fruit and vegetable vendors. These are their 5 astras of this Durjan Shakti against the Sajjan Shakti. Now, I was just thinking that where are all the dadis and nannies of Shaheen Bags who were distributing biryani in those protest sites, saying the poor and the needy need them? Where are they? Where are all those Christian NGOs who get millions and millions of dollars from across the globe to help the poor and needy in poor countries, in developing countries? Where is that money? We could not see anybody. We could see Sikh langars. We could see Jains, Buddhists, Hindus opening up their temples. We could see the Sajjan Shakti, Sangh and its organizations who are distributing food, water, medicines, having social distancing, ensuring it at the cost of their own lives. We could see everything. They were helping the administration. But where was this leftist, jihadi, dadis, nanis and the entire network? They were not to be found. They were only found in courts, in high courts and supreme courts, where they were filing PILs. They were questioning whatever the government was doing. And the questions were, what will happen to migration workers? What about the food? What about the livelihood? They were snubbed by the government also, by the courts also, saying at least in the times of crisis, have patience, allow government and don't disturb them on what they are doing. They are only questioning and not contributing. Now, regarding CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act, briefly stating, CAA only says that the prosecuted minorities from 3 neighboring Islamic countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, will be given citizenship if they are staying in India for last 5 years, that is from before 31st of December 2014. Prosecuted minorities included Hindus, Sikhs, Bauds, Jains, Parsis and Christians. This act did not apply to Indians. It only applied to prosecuted minorities of 3 neighboring Islamic countries. It was not anti-Muslim. In fact, it did not even mention the word Muslim. Then, it is an act which gives citizenship. It does not take citizenship from anybody. But this leftist jihadi gang, it put the entire country on fire. Protests everywhere, dharna, violence in all the universities, areas, saying this is anti-Muslim. Anybody who will read this act will find that this has nothing to do with Muslims. It has nothing to do with Indians. Now, there were 4 stages of these protests which were dangerous. First, from 15th of December, there were violent protests in universities like Jamia Islamia, ANU, and other universities. The police lathi charged. They were really beaten because of what they were doing. Second phase, they changed their strategy. The youth went at the back. The women were put in front. The women started sit-in protests, Shaheen Bagh-like protests all over India. They blocked busy roads. They sat there. The dadis and nannies sat there. People said they were paid for it. It is yet to be ascertained. They sat there. And the flavor of the protest was anti-Hindu, pro-Islamic nature of protests. Still, police acted with restraint. It did not lathi charge them. Then the third phase started. When police did not lathi charge, they did not know what to do. They were not getting the media attention. They were not able to highlight the issue, what to do. They started coming in hundreds in local streets and areas in gullies. I had these streams of burqa-clad women led by leftist students, women, in my streets in front of Shiv Mandir, crying and shouting the Azadi slogans. Still, the police acted with restraint. It did not beat them. It did not stop them. Then enters the 4th dangerous stage. They blocked the main road. They blocked the main road in Jafrabad, that is northeast Delhi, literally bringing half of the Delhi to a halt. And they were not ready to move away from there. And then the rioting started. Rioting started in the sense they attacked the police. They killed the police inspector, police constable Ratan Lal. They grievously injured the DCP Shahadra Amit Sharma. Aam Aadmi Party Tahir Hussein's house was a torture chamber. We've seen from the reports. Ankit Sharma, the IB official, was stabbed multiple times and then brutally murdered. The mob set to fire the petrol pump, the educational institutions. People were killed. The accused mob had revolver, lathis, swords, petrol bombs in their hands. 24th and 25th of February, the rioting was bad. And this was the time when Donald Trump had come to Delhi. When Donald Trump was in Delhi, this rioting was taking place in Delhi, where this jihadi mob was looting and killing people at their own wish. We as GIA, Group of Intellectuals and Academicians, I had led that committee. We had gone to Trans Yamuna and to that Jafrabad area in northeast Delhi. And we had done a fact-finding report, which is there in public domain. We submitted that report to Home Ministry, saying how this leftist jihadi gang brought about the conditions which led to rioting. We in fact interviewed Amit Sharma also, his wife also, who had been grievously injured. And in fact, there were ladies in burqa who had removed his helmet, who had called him to mediate and then attacked on him by swords, in fact, breaking his skull into 2. This is that jihadi mindset which knows no peace, which knows no borders. It is there as the Durjan Shakti. Now, the video of people like Umar Khalid inciting people is there on YouTube. He said that Donald Trump will be in Delhi in these 2 days, that is 25th and 24th of February. People come on roads. Let the entire international media in Delhi know that minorities are being persecuted. They're not safe in India. That video is there. Sharjil Imam's video is there about that chicken neck seditious speech is there. Then Tahir Hussein's Karnamas, whatever he did, and which is the police says that we have forensic scientific evidence against all these people who are being arrested. So police arrested all of them. They arrested Umar Khalid, they arrested Sharjil Imam, they arrested Tahir Hussain, they arrested 2 or 3 women students from Jamia also. And now the leftist jihadi gang against cries Islamophobia. Now come on, if you are killing people, if you are inciting people, it is nothing to do with your religion. It is to do with an offense. You are not behaving as per the rule of law. You are violating the law. Hence you have to be punished and booked, irrespective of your religion. But they say, oh, we have freedom of speech. These people don't read the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 19 says, a person, a citizen has freedom of speech, but with reasonable restrictions. You cannot incite people to do an offense. You can't incite people to do violence. You cannot disturb the public order. This, in fact, what Umar Khalid and others gave is hate speech. And hate speech is punishable under Indian Penal Code, Section 153, 295, 298 and 505 Part 4, which all collectively say that anyone promoting hatred amongst communities on the basis of religion, race, language, etc., they'll be jailed, they'll be additionally fined. These people have been arrested under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Now, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act says whoever acts against the unity, integrity, security, and sovereignty of India, whoever attempts to strike terror in the people or a section of the people will be jailed. These people have been booked for sedition, for conspiracy to commit murder, for murder, rioting, etc. Law will take its own course. Nowadays, investigation is not that one person goes to your house and collects the evidence. It is scientific, it is forensic, and there are electronic footprints of what you are doing in social media, what chats you are doing, whom you are talking to, with whom you have links, etc., etc. Police will go into it. But the guilty needs to be punished. Now I come to their third point. Tablighi Jamaat? Come on, they are the victims. They are not the perpetrators of this spread. They are not the super spreaders. Come on, who says so? See the facts. Tablighi Jamaat is a radical Islamist outfit which has been banned in Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. It has terror links. It's suspected to be behind the burning of 9 Hindu car sevaks in 2002 Godhra, Gujarat. It has association with terrorist organizations like Harkat-ul-Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed. They preach Islam, they preach radical Islam, extremist Islam, and then forcibly convert. Tablighi Jamaat is blacklisted in many countries and their preachers are denied visas. Strangely, Tablighi Jamaat with the branches in over 80 countries has its headquarters in our India, in Delhi, in Nizamuddin, about say 15 kilometers from my house. And nobody knew about it because here they kept at low pace. They did not have much activity here. Now, India had a decisive response to Corona. It had contained its spread, but the Tablighi Jamaat became super spreaders of Corona. How? 13 to 15 March, the Tablighi Jamaat had a religious gathering of people in Nizamuddin in Delhi. About 9,000 plus people participated. There were foreigners also from many countries. There were reports that they ate from the same plate. Group of 4s coming one by one, about 24 people eating from the same plate without washing it, without spoons, with their own hands, spreading the infection if one had it. They all went for wazu, that is the pond of water where you have to clean your legs before offering prayers, from the same little pond. So if anybody had Corona, he acted as super spreader within that Tablighi conference. Then they did this conference violating all the prohibitory orders. And more so, when they went back to their respective states, they, despite orders from state governments, did not tell them that we had attended that Tablighi Jamaat conference in Nizamuddin, Delhi. They did not come forward for testing. And do you know, anti-terror organizations had to be put in to trace these Tablighis, and they had to come forward for testing. They had to be literally pulled from their houses for testing. And when they came for testing and they were quarantined, they were inhuman. They said, number one, in the evenings we'll collect together for our prayers. They were said, you can't do it. They used to roam in various quarantine centers with their pants, trousers down, and passing vulgar comments at the nurses and the doctors there. They spitted at the doctors, they fought with the doctors, they attacked the nurses. They did lewd gestures. And when they were told to take medicines, they said, no, we don't want medicines. They threw the food plates and said, we want non-veg, we want biryani. This was their conduct. And when they were taken in Delhi from a place to a quarantine center and a hospital, during that passage in the bus they were traveling, they spitted on the people on the road. Are they human? Yogi Ji said that this is what defies humanity. This is inhuman conduct. Hence, I will book them under National Securities Act. In fact, Modi government also brought an amendment in the Epidemic Act and said zero tolerance to those attacking nurses, doctors, health workers. They will be jailed up to 7 years and fined up to 5 lakhs. Nobody has a right to attack these corona warriors. So this was not about a religion. This was about the public conduct. This was a wrong conduct. They were not taught how to behave. They attacked and spitted at the doctors. And now these leftist jihadi groups call it Islamophobia. My Muslim friends tell me that they don't allow Tablighis to enter their houses. Number of Tablighis go to these slums and unauthorized colonies and say, okay, our namaz can't be offered in our masjids, so we can go on the terrace and we'll take your sons also and we'll offer a collective namaz there. These women literally bang doors at them, attack them and say, don't enter my house, you spoil my child also, you are a super spreader of corona. Even Muslims think them that way because of their conduct. And we've seen how when doctors go for testing, they are attacked, the female doctors. When they are coming for Friday prayers and the police stops them that, you have to maintain social distance. You can't come out of your houses. They are attacked with lathis, with swords, with knives. Is this a conduct? Are we fighting the corona only? No. We are fighting the corona also and the negative forces which are evil, which work against humanity also. Now the last point, they say, well, you are boycotting Muslims, vendors who are selling vegetables, who are selling fruits. No, we are not. We are not. We are only concerned about the health and hygiene of myself, my family, my child. And so will the good Muslims be. We have seen videos in which this vegetable and fruit vendor, he is putting his spit on the vegetables and selling it. Can you buy from that person? We've seen videos where the health workers went for testing and he pelted stones at them, saying that testing is against our religion. We've seen videos in how so many people are violating the social distancing and staying at home and coming out, gathering. We are going for prayers. You can't do it, no? So what I say is that 10% evil people are there everywhere. But when 1 or 2 or 3 such persons do such inhuman acts, why don't those remaining 90% Muslims stand up against them, shout them down and say, what you are doing is you are bringing bad name to my religion. Instead, take care of your actions. It brings bad name to me, my religion. We are waiting for those 90% Sajjan Shakti in Islam to come forward, to shout these dojans down and to say, we will not tolerate it. We are with humanity. We are with peace. And we are the real Islam. We are waiting for them to come. But miserably, the intelligentsia, the academic world, the journalists, these Muslims who are supposed to be the opinion makers have failed their own religion. They have not come out. They have not condemned Tabligis. They have not condemned saying Umar Khalid gave us a seditious speech. Book him under more stringent laws. This has nothing to do with Islamophobia. We are waiting for that Sajjan Shakti in Islam to come out. Now, if I can end this by saying that this is Islamophobia, all right? Who is doing it? Does our constitution practice it? Does the law of the land practice it? No. Our constitution gives right to equality, right against discrimination, right to right to freedom of speech, right to live with dignity, right to practice religion, right to establish and maintain educational institutions to one and all, irrespective of their religion. Article 14, Article 15, Article 19, 21, 25, then Article 30. They all give you every right, irrespective of religion. In fact, minorities have more right. Linguistic and religious minorities, they can establish and maintain their own institutions. We have a minority commission. We have Human Rights Commission. It's a secular country where we say, Sarv Dharm Sambhav. We do not say that the food, water, medical infrastructure will be provided to majority first and not to minority. We can't even think it because we see divinity in all. We throw this concept of minority and majority. We all are one. We all are humans. We all are divine. Let's accept each other as divine. Is Modi government and its administration distinguishing people on the basis of religion? Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. More than 30 crore bank accounts opened, not knowing one's religion. More than 7 crores given in Mudra loan, not asking for religion. Gas connections, more than 7 crores given. Crores of money for building houses given. Kisan Samman Nidhi given. Nobody asked for your religion. Whoever is below poverty line will get it. Whoever is in the queue will get it. It's Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas. It is the Bharatiya value, the Bharatiya principle. But this leftists, they create a fake narrative. It's based on fake news. They will not come to you when you talk reason. They will not come to you when you talk of constitution, law, the policies of Modi government or Bharatiya principles or what Sajjan Shakti is doing. They'll build a fake narrative. Fake news. Oh, the food was not being provided to a lady. Hence, she drowned 5 of her kids in the river. That was the video. That was the fake news circulated by this leftist jihadi gang. And when the truth was seen, the truth was that the husband and wife had a fight. That was it. Nobody was drowned. They had food. They simply had a fight, like everybody else does in their houses. But this went beyond a certain limit. That's it. Now, such fake news and fake narrative which they build, they tweet about it. They post videos about it. With the aid of the Chinese money, the cyber army of Pakistan, it ropes in the scholars, the lawyers from countries like Kuwait, countries like UAE, the princes of UAE, so-called princes of UAE. They all pitch in to substantiate this anti-India, anti-Hindu narrative of Islamophobia. We have to be very, very cautious. Because as a lawyer and representing and seeing such cases, I will just tell you in the last how this, the ecosystem of leftist Naxals, jihadis work. See, if suppose we as a JNU administration, we pass an order that there will be compulsory attendance. We passed it last year that there will be compulsory attendance for all the students. The students' union immediately comes for agitation. The teachers' union pitches in. their lawyers group, they start preparing a petition to go to the court. Then they pitch in the senior advocates who are the powerful voices in India today, and you know whom I am talking about. They pitch in those people. So next day when we go to court, they mention it before the Chief Justice, have an urgent mentioning, have the matter listed the same day. Their entire army is ready of advocates who have drafted the petition, and those senior advocates, and you know who come there and argue such cases. And when the argument is over by 1 o'clock, it's a long argument, and when we come to our chambers to have our lunch and we open our WhatsApp, seeing that what's happening in the social world, then we see the leftist jihadi online newspapers reporting in about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words about what the entire petition was about, how the students' union protested, how the teachers' union protested, how the lawyers came in, and what the court said, what their lawyer said, what I said, what the judge said, and what the next date is, and what their views are. You have a 3,000-word article ready within minutes, in fact seconds, of the final argument in the court that day. And that report is picked up by their next army. The baton is being given to their writers. Those writers, taking the content from these articles and the write-ups, start writing articles. And they write articles varying from newspapers in local languages, in national newspapers to international newspapers. Then the BBC also covers that news. And then they have celebrities from Hollywood to Bollywood, the hours. They're coming, they're pitching in, and they're tweeting about it, they're writing about it. And this creates the entire ecosystem. And that news, which was kind of irrelevant for any university, it becomes a very, very big news, the talking point of evening TV debates. And this becomes the international issue. This is how their ecosystem works. And how do they have such a strong ecosystem in academics, in research institutes, among journalists, among the entertainment industry, everywhere, in judiciary? Because they have been ruling with Congress for 70 years. When Congress was minting money, when they were ruling in the political mind and the political sphere, these communists, I praise them for that. They said, we don't want money. We want your research institutions. We want your journalist institutions. And we want your colleges and universities. They brainwashed our generations. The teachers who are there in such institutions, many of them, you see how they brainwash a simple child who comes to the college. My own friend told me, whose daughter is in Delhi University, she belongs to some family, a very patriotic family. And she says, Monica, just take care of my daughter. I said, what happened? She said, the day she has gone to school, the college, and a very, very reputed college in Delhi, she has gone out of my hands. She talks some nonsense. She talks a language of hate India Brigade and break India Brigade. She says, come on, India was never one, and what's Hindutva? And she's talking on all such lines as these leftists do. So brainwashing is taking place. We have to fight corona epidemic together as a society, as a nation. But we also, Sajjan Shakti has to take care that these Mayavi Ravanas who are created by the Ravan to distract us and defeat us get defeated. Once this illusion meets the real facts given by us, this illusion goes away. So concentrate on reading, writing as we all do. Put this good content in social media for the social media warriors, the Bharat warriors, to take it up. Yesterday I am told there was a global trend of Islamophobia in Bharat. Kuwait minister and this so-called princess of UAE, they were tweeting about the persecution of minorities and Muslims. They were saying Muslims have become untouchable in India. So these are the fake narratives we all have to fight also in our individual capacities. So in the last, if I can, the third last of my speech, if I can say that we have seen the communist world. When in the communist world, a person, a doctor, said that there is this outbreak, there is this strange kind of a disease. His voice was crushed, he was tortured by the Communist Party, and he was quietened. They put their own party, their own economy over lives. We've also seen capitalist world where there was confusion. Lives or economy, what's more important? Liberation. Protest saying, I have not gone to a saloon. Protest saying, I want my money and freedom back. Protest saying, you cannot interfere with my right to life. They did not have a collective consciousness. Individualism ruled. It was individual versus society's benefit. We have seen the Islamic world, which has no capacity to deal with these changes, who are not ready to change and who abandon their minorities at the first instance. And we have seen Bharat, and we have seen the spiritual consciousness of Bharat, which when invoked, 130 crore people were together saying, we give our money. We volunteer ourselves to serve our society, irrespective of religion, irrespective of caste, irrespective of gender. We are there because we have been taught that keep yourself in a denominator. Society and humanity is above everything. We provided hydroxychloroquine and whatever help the world needs, we are there because we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So Bharat is teaching the world the new way. This way in which the world is one family, in which if there is a prick, there is a hurt to one individual, the entire world should stand as one and take care to give solace to that person. So I'll say in the last that future is of India, future is of Bharat. And that's why our Article 1 of the Constitution says, India, that is Bharat. Because India was just born in 1947. So who are the relatives of India? Who's the inspiration of India? Who's the Dada, Nana, Chacha, Taya, Bhua of India? Who are the rishis of India? To know India, you must know Bharat. And Bharat says that God is one. There are various ways to reach that God. You are also God. I am also God. See divine in everything. Do not discriminate and we'll become one good, peaceful, happy, healthy family. So, in the last I say, आज मैंने सूर्य से बस जरा यूं ही कहा, आपके साम्राज्य में इतना अंधेरा क्यों रहा? तम तमाके वो दहाड़ा, मैं अकेला क्या करूं? तुम बेफिक्रों के लिए मैं भला कब तक लड़ूं? आकाश की आराधना के चक्रों में मत पड़ो, संग्राम यह घनघोर है, कुछ मैं लड़ूं, कुछ तुम लड़ो। जय हिंद।